Hello folks, it's your storyteller Chip here. But I am not sharing your story today because I'm really excited. We have a very special guest for you today. This man is not just a storyteller, but also a puppet maker. And he has actually made this story all by himself, which means that you could be one of the first people in the whole world to hear this story. How exciting is that? So I'm going to let this man introduce himself to you. Some of you may have already met him before. But first, we will have our opening animation, so everybody get ready to clap. Hang on a minute, have you done that before? Some of you may have spotted that when we have that opening cartoon to our stories, where all of the animals gather in the wood and the book flies up ready for the epic tale, it opens up and out flies a little star with your storyteller inside, going like this. And we would like you to join in with that if you can. Or maybe if some of the grown-ups around you can join in as well. So get ready when you see the book start to fly up into the air. Get your hands ready, and when that little star flies out with the storyteller inside, go like that. And then our storyteller will introduce himself and begin sharing your story. So, are you ready for it? Here comes the story.
Hello, my name is Andy, which as you probably know is short for Andromedus. Andromedus Silverbeard is my name, and I'm going to be telling you a story about cavemen. I love cavemen. And do you know what? I don't think there are actually enough stories about cavemen. So I wrote this one myself. It's about 3 cavemen, and I'll tell you their names in just a moment. So are you sitting comfortably? Are you? Are you ready? Are you steady? Are you a bright pink teddy? Well, here we go then. Once upon a time, long, long ago, longer ago than all the once upon a times of all the stories you ever heard or ever read, that long ago, there was a cave. And inside the cave lived 3 brothers. Ugg, Bug, and Doug. Ugg was the eldest. I've got him right here. Ugg was really strong and really brave, and he was a really, really good hunter. Ugg always carried around a heavy wood club. Ooh, ooh, ooh. And every single day he would say, "Ha! Me Ugg!" just to prove how extremely tough he was. Bye. His brother, Bug, who's right here. He was quite strong and quite brave and quite a good hunter as well, but not quite as strong as Ugg. But Bug here, he was a really fast runner. Yeah? He could run all day long and not get tired. And Bug, he always carried around a wooden spear, tipped with a sharp piece of bone. And every single day he would say, "Huh!" just to prove how strong and tough he was. Bye. Now Ugg and Bug, they used to tease their little brother Doug. Here he is. Hello. They said he spent too much time thinking, and too much time painting. He loved to paint. He could paint all day long if he was allowed to, but he wasn't allowed to. He would get teased for doing this. He would get told off for doing that. But he loved painting the walls of the cave. The cave in which they lived had lots of little alleys and nooks and crannies and chambers leading off it, going deeper, deeper, deeper into the hillside. So it was quite a big cave with lots and lots of walls to paint. And he loved to paint. Goodbye. His language was so much better than his two brothers. He would mix up the paints himself. He made paints by grinding up coloured rocks and coloured roots and coloured leaves, and he would mix them with a little bit of water and the fat which would drip off the meat into the fire. And he would paint the walls using a stick or a leaf or a feather or just his hands. He loved getting paint on his fingers. Ooh. Who doesn't? But his parents, Oompa and Loompa, they despaired about Doug. If they could have done, they would have said, "Oh, what are we going to do about our son Doug? He spends too much time just painting my lovely clean walls. He's not strong like Ugg. He's not fast like Bug. He's no good at hunting. He's not much good at anything. He just wants to paint. Oh, he needs a good career like hunting or tool making or hunting." But they couldn't say this because language hadn't actually been invented properly yet. So instead they could just say, "Oh, Ugg, good boy. Bug, good boy. Good hunting, good running, strong, brave. Doug, silly. He just go, painty, painty, painty. What we gonna do?" As you probably realised, Ugg, Bug, Doug, Oompa and Loompa were cave people. Yeah, they lived in a cave all together and they were part of a clan. A clan is like a tribe, but the word clan sounds far more cave-like than tribe. Their clan was called the Oogadugga 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 clan, which in translation means big family in cave clan. The Oogadugga 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 clan. And as long as Oompa, Loompa, Ugg, Bug and Doug, they also had their uncle and aunt living with them. The uncle was called Unky and the aunt was called Punky. And they also lived with their granny and granddad, Ganky and Manky, and their next door neighbour, Lanky, who had recently left his own cave because he'd been chased out by a very greedy bear. Lanky, by the way, was incredibly tall and kept hitting his head on stalactites. Yeah, those are the things that hang down in caves. Not bats, but the other thing. And yeah, they were cave people. Now, the cave in which they lived was a little bit damp and very big and echoey. And if you listen carefully, you would hear the drip, drip, drip of water as it dripped from the ceiling. Yeah, like this. And it was cold, especially in winter. So luckily they had central heating. Well, they didn't have central heating as we know it. They had a big fire in the middle of the cave. It didn't make the cave cosy, but it certainly improved things. Now, by the way, my friends, every now and then I might need to take a sip of water. Not dripping down from the stalactites, but from my cup here. And if you see me take a drink of water, I want you to do the old-fashioned caveman chant. You have to go glug, 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 glug as I drink. And when I finish drinking, you have to say, ah. put the whole thing together, and what do you have? Perfect. The old caveman drinking game. So, their life had improved by having fire in their cave. Now, here's going to be a difficult thing for me to explain. At the time of this story, there were lots of different humans about. I know that's kind of hard to think about because at the moment, we only have one type of human, and we are called Homo sapiens. Yeah, thinking man. But at the time of this story, there were lots of different humans about. There were tall ones and there were short ones. There were hairy ones and there were scary ones. There were ones who still lived in trees and ones who had no knees. Well, I might have made that bit up. But still, there were lots of different humans about. And on the whole, these different types of people and the different clans, they kept themselves to themselves. They didn't interact. In fact, you could say the clans socially distanced themselves from each other. If two clans did happen to meet, they would probably just have a big fight or run away from each other. They wouldn't hang around and have a chat about the weather or discuss where to find the best berries or what their favourite type of snow was. No, they would just run away. And as a result of this social distancing, there weren't many ideas to be passed around. Well, you could say there were lots of ideas to be passed around, but they never actually got passed around. Some clans were more advanced than others. Some clans had more technology than others. Some were good at making tools, and some had fire, and some did not have fire. And on the whole, clans that did have fire realised that their life was so much better now they had fire than before when they didn't have fire. I mean, can you imagine not being able to cook your food? Can you imagine having to live off uncooked earthworms and raw bark and snails in their shells? I feel ill just thinking about it. Well, the Oogadugga Oogadugga clan, they did have fire. But here's the really strange thing. They didn't know how to make it. Yeah, they had fire, but they didn't know how to make it. You see, many years ago, long before Doug had been born, Oompa had come across fire completely by chance. There had been a wildfire. Now, sometimes a wildfire can start when it's really hot weather and the grass is really, really dry. And sometimes just the tiniest spark might set it off. And no one really knows where the sparks come from. But I think when Oompa came across his fire, there had been a tiny crystal called quartz. And the tiny crystal, which looks a bit like a diamond, had acted like a magnifying glass, and the sun had come shining down, shone through the quartz crystal, and had concentrated the heat, and it started a fire. Anyway, Oompa, he was brave, just like Ugg, and Oompa had run into the burning meadow, grabbed hold of a burning bush in his bare hands, and he ran all the way back to the Oogadugga 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 cave. And from that day on, they had kept the fire burning by feeding it with dry moss or dry leaves or dry twigs. And it had been a bit like a pet to them. In fact, they gave it a name. They called it Figgy, which means hungry hot thing. They called it hungry because they would feed it 20 times a day. And in fact, all 10 of them, Ugg, Bug, Dug, Oompa, Loompa, Unky, Punky, Ganky, Manky and Lanky, all 10 of them, one day a week, would feed Figgy to keep it burning. Now if you're thinking, hang on, that doesn't add up. That guy doesn't know his maths. In the olden days, in caveman days, they used to have a 10-day week. Well, Doug loved it when it was his turn. to look after Figgy. He had to look after Figgy during the day, but he also had to look after Figgy throughout the night. And he loved this moment. He loved it when the rest of the clan were fast asleep and he would stare into the flames and he would think of all the stories he could think of and all the pictures he wanted to paint. He loved that moment. Sometimes he would take a sip of water and just think. Now one night, it was Doug's turn to watch Figgy. And he was looking forward to this because he was in the middle of some of his best art yet. In one of the chambers right at the back of the cave, far, far into the hillside, he was in the middle of painting his best picture yet. It was a painting of a woolly mammoth, a woolly rhino, and a giant elk, which is a bit like a deer. And those three beasts were having a race with each other. And he couldn't wait to finish the painting off. So he sat there by Figgy. He put lots of twigs in it so he would burn for a very, very long time. And he waited until he could hear that all the rest of the clan were fast asleep. They all snored. Each one had a different kind of snore. Some would snore very low like this. Some would snore very high like this. But he waited for all the clan to be asleep. He put a bit more twigs, a few more twigs and a few more bits of moss and more dried leaves on Figgy to keep it burning for a very, very long time. And then he snuck off into the back chamber, taking a burning branch with him so he could see what he was doing. He got into that back chamber where he'd left his painting kit. And there on the wall was his half-finished picture. He couldn't wait to start. He took that burning branch and he wedged it into a crack in the wall. And he took out his favourite painting stick and he started to paint. And he painted and he painted and he painted. He didn't know how long he painted for. In fact, he completely lost track of time, which, to tell the truth, was quite easy to do in those days because time had not been invented. So he painted and painted and painted, and when he'd finished, his burning branch was almost at the end. It was only about that long, but it was still flaming away. He took it out of the wall and he stood back to look at the artwork he had done, and he tripped over a rock and he dropped the burning branch. It went out just like that. He was now in pitch blackness. Well, he stumbled his way through the chamber back into the main part of the cave so he could get more fire from Figgy. But oh no! Figgy had gone out. Figgy was dead. No, said Bug. No, said Ugg. No, said Doug. And he ran up to the fire and he blew. The others had woken up because it was starting to get cold already in the cave. One by one, the rest of them, Unky, Punky, Ganky, Manky, Lanky, Oompa and Loompa, they woke up. No! Silly Doug! Silly boy Doug! Too much painty, painty, painty. Not enough watchy, watchy, watchy. Oh, what we gonna do? What we gonna do? Everyone was so angry with Doug, they gave him the stink eye. Worst day ever. What we gonna do? Me so sorry, said Doug. Me know what to do, said Ugg. Me strong, me brave, me good hunter. Oh, ah! Me go find fire. Me go find fire right now. So Ugg waited for daylight and he left the cave, leaving the rest of the clan in a very, very sulky mood. They knew that if he didn't come back with fire, very soon they'd be eating uncooked earthworms, raw bark, and snails in their shells, when they could in fact be eating roast rabbit, hot beetroot, and baked fish. Well, Ugg walked for quite some time. Of course, like I said, time hadn't been invented, so he didn't know how long he had walked for. But eventually, he came across a woolly rhinoceros. Whoa. "Hey you," said Ugg. "Hey you, hairy horn guy. Me Ugg, me need fire. Me want fire. Where I find fire?" "Well," said the woolly rhino. By the way, in those days, all animals could talk. And in fact, all animals had a far better vocabulary than cavemen. "Well," said the woolly rhino, "it just so happens that this very morning my horn began to itch. And when my horn begins to itch, it can only mean one thing. It means there's going to be a storm. And with a bit of luck, when there's a storm, there's also thunder, but there's also lightning. And with a bit of luck, when there's lightning, it might strike a tree. And if lightning strikes a tree, it'll catch fire. But you'll have to stand by the driest, tallest tree for it to catch fire. Oh, and by the way, can you please stop hunting us? We're nearly extinct. Goodbye." And the woolly rhino, the hairy horn guy, ran off. "Thank you," said Ugg. "Thank you very much." Now, although Ugg wasn't the sharpest flint in the cave, he understood what the rhino meant. He understood that he must find a tall, dry tree, preferably all on its own. And when he'd found the perfect tree, he waited by it. And he waited and waited and waited. He didn't know how long for. And when he heard a rumble, he thought, "Oh good, storm come." But in fact, it was his tummy. He was really hungry. So he waited some more, and waited some more, and waited some more, and eventually the rumbling came back. And this time it really was a storm, a great big storm rolling over the sky. It was thundering, and it was lightning, and a bolt of lightning crashed down and hit the tree he was standing next to. And straight away the tree caught fire. Well, like I said, Ugg was very, very brave indeed. And he climbed up the burning tree. Yeah, that brave. He snapped a branch off the tree and he carried the burning branch all the way back to the Oogadugga cave. From a distance, Oompa and Loompa could see him. "Oh, good boy, Ugg, he got fire. Clever, clever Ugg, good hunter. Clever, clever Ugg." And the rest of the clan, they jumped up and down and they slapped each other on their backs in excitement, and they clapped, although they didn't know how to clap properly, like that. And they were so excited, and they were laughing, and they were so happy. And they were so happy that unfortunately they made Ugg too proud. And he started doing somersaults and backflips. And he did a backflip and he landed badly and he dropped the burning branch. "No," said Oompa. "No," said Loompa, because the burning branch, it fell into a nearby swamp and it went out with a hiss. "No, silly Ugg. Silly, silly boy. Too much showy offy. Oh, what we gonna do?" "Oh, me so sorry," said Ugg. "Me so very sorry." "No worry," said Bug. "Me good hunter too. Me go and find fire. Me go right now." And he left the Oogadugga 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 clan sulking. They were sulking at Doug, and now they were sulking at Ugg. Well, Bug walked for quite some time, not knowing how long, and eventually he came across a giant elk. Now, as I said before, an elk is like a giant deer. So a giant elk must be like a supermassive deer. And they have these supermassive horns. And archaeologists and people who study cavemen have a very long name for this animal here. They call it a megaloceros. Megaloceros. That basically means giant antler. Not to be confused, of course, with the megalosaurus, which is in fact a supermassive T-Rex who lived many, many million years before the megaloceros. I don't know why everything in the past had mega in front of it. Everything was so big, I guess. Well, Bug went up to the megaloceros and said, "Hey, you, crazy cactus head, massive cactus head. Me need fire. Me Bug. Me want fire. You know where me find fire? Can you help?" "Well," said the very, very friendly megaloceros. "Well, it just so happens, my friends, that this very morning my antlers began to twitch, and when my antlers begin to twitch, it can only mean one thing. It can only mean that a volcano is about to erupt. And if a volcano erupts, there'll be a lava flow rolling down the side of the mountain. And if you were to put anything into that lava flow, anything wood particularly, it would catch fire. And then you'll have your fire. Oh, and by the way, can you please stop hunting us? We're nearly extinct. Goodbye." "Oh, thank you," said Bug. "Thank you very much." And he went over to the volcano, that one just over there. Can you see it? Just there. And he waited and waited and waited. And when he heard a rumble, he thought, "Oh, good. Volcano about to go bang, bang, bang." But no, it was his tummy rumbling. He was really hungry. So he waited some more, and some more, and some more. But then the rumbling was beneath his feet. The ground began to shake like this. And all of a sudden, kaboom! The volcano erupted. And red-hot lava flowed down the sides of the slope of the mountain. Well, luckily, Bug was an incredibly fast runner, and he ran to the lava flow, and he dipped in his spear into the red-hot lava, and instantly it caught fire. And he carried his burning spear all the way back to the Oogadugga cave. And from a distance, Oompa and Loompa could see him. "Oh, good boy, Bug, good boy. He bring fire. He got fire. Clever, clever Bug. Oh, he good boy." And the rest of the clan, they jumped up and down. They clapped. And they slapped each other on the back. And they were all really happy, which of course, unfortunately, made Bug really, really proud. And the silly boy, he started to twizzle the stick in his hand like this, like a modern-day majorette. And he dropped it straight into the swamp. "No!" they all said. "No, silly Bug! No fire! We're gonna have to eat uncooked earthworms, raw bark, snails in their shells. No! This is terrible! What we gonna do?" End of part 1.
That was brilliant. Oh, what a fantastic start to a story. I don't know about you, but I can't wait to find out what happens next. I was thinking as I was watching it, it's a bit strange that we haven't heard this story before, isn't it? I mean, if it's about cavemen, surely the story is tens of thousands of years old. Maybe, if we haven't heard it before, that means the Oogadugga 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 clan really can't survive without fire. We have to make sure that Andy finishes the story. We have to hear the end of the story. But we can only do that if you have a go at our epic challenge. So, here's what we need you to do this week. Just like Andy has had a go at making some cavemen, we want you to make a caveman of your own. And you can do that however you like. Maybe you could just draw some fantastic pictures like Grace did in our wonderful illustration for Andy's story. But you could also have a go at making some puppets like Andy did. Now, you can use all sorts of things to make puppets. I think Andy probably used wood. I'm not as good as Andy. I've tried making mine out of Play-Doh. So here he is. He's a little bit fragile. Let me see if I can bring him up for you. There we go. This is my puppet right there. You can see he's got a little club. And he's got his blue hair. I think because he is made out of Play-Doh, I should maybe call him Plug. There we go. This is Plug the caveman. There we are. If you make a puppet like that, perhaps you could take a photo of it, or you could maybe even make a little video of you moving your puppet. But of course, there are other kinds of puppet too, aren't there? They're the kind that you actually stick your hand into and move their mouth, a little bit like what you can do with a sock. Now, don't worry, I'm not going to take my socks off. You really don't want to smell my feet. But I do have my jumper here. You can use all sorts of things to make puppets. If I get my jumper here, just to give you a bit of an example, you could maybe get an old jumper, and you could stick your hand inside it. You could maybe stick some eyes on it, maybe give it a club as well, and then you can make it talk. And you can even give it a name too. Let's see, in Andy's story, there was Oompa and Loompa. So, hi, my name is Jumper. You can do this with anything that you find around the house. I'm sure that you can stick your hand up and make talk, just like Jumper here. And of course, you can decorate him too, take a photo of that. In fact, you could even turn yourself into a puppet. Have a look in your dressing up box if you've got one, or just see what you've got around the house. I do have a dressing up box, and I found this in it. So if I just finish blowing this up. There we go. A little bit safer than a real club, isn't it? But if you can get something like this, and didn't actually think it. Oh, I know. I've got my jumper here, haven't I? So if I actually throw this over my head now, there we go. Looks like the long, wispy hair that cavemen maybe had. And I've got my club. And what name could I have? Maybe I could be Chug. And once you have turned yourself into a cave person, just take a photo of yourself or create a little video and send it to us. But however you design your cave person, be it as a picture or a puppet or dressing up, we'd like you also to give us a few words to describe your cave person, just like Andy described his. Remember, Ugg was brave and strong and good at hunting, and Bug was quite brave and quite strong and good at running. We'd like you to tell us what words describe your cave person and what are they good at. If you like, you could even write us a story about your cave person, or tell us a story about your cave person. However you want to share the news of your cave person, send it to us at epictales.co.uk/challenge. Be it a picture, a photo, a video, and some writing, and we will share it with others so that we can also share the end to Andy's story of Ugg, Bug, and Dug. So we really can't wait to see your cave people. Right now, though, it only remains for me to say, Ostaba, la bom da be, do, la da som. Which I'm sure you realise is cave speak for cheerio! And we hope to hear your story